Now for another destination that's a little bit out of the way. This one happens to be on my personal bucket list. We're talking Iceland now. It's a place that recently I think has been popping up a little bit more regularly on the news. It's a place that people are now beginning to notice. There was a movie last year, Secret Life of Walter Mitty, which saw Ben Stiller traveling to Iceland. And it started becoming a kind of place that I think a lot of heavy travelers, a lot of regular travelers want to see. So we've got a fairly fortunate situation here in that Sarel Plessis, who's from travel.co.za and has been a guest on this show before, actually went on a personal holiday there to Iceland. So it's always nice to have the travel experts who've been to a place to talk to us about these things. So welcome to the studio, Sarel.
Thank you.
Right, good. Let's start right at the beginning. Iceland, what drove you to want to do Iceland?
I think, once again, Iceland is one of those things that's always been on my list to do. Actually wanted to do it quite a few years ago, but it was very inaccessible for us still. It's become much easier to get there. There's a lot of European flights, exactly like you said. It's on the radar. So there's been scheduled services started to Iceland quite regularly. It's not only the low-cost carriers from London anymore. So quite easy to get there if you're okay with flying for 2 days.
Right.
But yeah, always been on my list of things to do.
Okay, and you recently got to spend 5 days in Iceland, which you said wasn't really enough, but it must have given you some kind of general idea for what you were looking for. What did you like about Iceland? Let's start with the highlights. What were the things that you enjoyed?
I think, again, it's one of those things that I wouldn't suggest Iceland as for a first-time traveler, because there's quite a lot of it's not necessarily tourist-friendly, although it is very tourist-friendly as well, because it has started as a massive destination for especially Europe and the States. But obviously, if you like that kind of landscape, it's very volcanic. There's absolutely no trees. There's 1 or 2 trees in the city areas. But the highlights are definitely the geysers, the glaciers, and the Northern Lights. I mean, that's why you go there. So that's why it's been on my list as well, as for the Northern Lights. And it's one of those catch-22, are you going to see it or not?
Right, and I suppose culturally it's quite an interesting country. I keep telling everybody they believe in fairies there, and it's quite an ancient, Scandinavian language as well, and their phone book's quite different. Does that culture thing come through, or is it not yet at that tourism stage where they're really milking it?
No, they are milking it.
Okay, good.
They've definitely picked up on that. We did go on an elf tour.
Okay.
Walking elf tour, which they are, I smiled a bit during the tour because they're very, very serious about their elves and fairies, and it's not really something that's in our culture.
No, did you see any though?
Unfortunately not. I tried very hard.
Unlucky.
But, yeah. And they did take us through a park as well that's set aside for elves especially, where there can't be any human development because the elves live there. They also built a highway to the north of the country where they actually diverted the highway in order not to disturb the elves, because the negotiations didn't go well with the elves.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's important that they're taking care of their only
exactly.
natural wildlife, I suppose.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. But now you say it's glaciers and lava, and I mean that kind of meeting of natural occurrences must make for some pretty epic scenery.
It's the most incredible scenery I've ever seen in any country, but very unique as well. I mean, obviously there's countries with amazing scenery, but that's very, very unique, because exactly what you say, the lava meets the glacier meets the massive, massive waterfalls. I mean, there's just incredible waterfalls that comes from the glaciers over the lava, and you can see the light. So it's pitch black against pure white.
Right.
So incredible scenery.
Okay, and what is it like in terms of cost? I mean, is it an expensive country to go and visit, or?
Yeah, I'm still negotiating with the bank at the moment to pay it off.
I see. Okay.
It is not the cheapest destination at all, but it's worth every cent. So, and there are certain things that you can do to make it more cost effective if you don't go the tourist route. We did a self-drive, so we hired a car and we did all the major tours driving around, which is better because you've got your own flexibility to stop where you want to or not stop where you don't want to. And secondly, it's worth it to hire the GPS, which is slightly expensive, about €10 a day to hire a GPS, but it's got preloaded tours on it. So at the moment you go on a route that's part of a traditional bus tour, the GPS will start the tour for you.
Oh, right.
So it worked out perfectly fine. And there's also certain time we left at 10 every morning, so we missed all the tour buses, which means that we didn't have those crowds at all the attractions.
Right, that's quite clever. Okay, now you say that they're the tourist attractions. What are the major tourist attractions? What are the things that people should go see?
I'm not going to try and pronounce any of the names,
Okay.
but just north of the capital Reykjavik, there's a national park, which is not pronounceable really. But
Right.
that's the Golden Circle tour, and which is traditionally the Golden Circle tour. But when you self-drive it, the first thing you'll see on that tour is where the tectonic plates from North America and Europe meet. So you
Okay.
can actually drive geographically from North America to Europe. When you drive over the tear and it's moving about 2 inches a year, so it's actually moving quite fast. So Iceland will be 2 islands,
2 countries, yeah.
in a few years, not in our lifetime. And then there's massive waterfalls. Again, I'm not going to try and pronounce the names, but it's all in a circle, so the route is quite easy to drive. The roads are incredible. There's quite a few waterfalls, and then there's obviously volcanoes. And the lava flow, you can see the lava flow very, very clearly. In winter, the moss is on the volcano or on the volcanic rock, which is quite nice to see because it's green. In summer, it does go grey, so it's not as pretty then.
Right.
A lot of mountains and a lot of glaciers, so you can see that all on the circle tour. Then the other tour is on the south coast, which has got the Blue Lagoon, which is obviously the geysers exploding, which is incredible to see. It's something we don't know at all. And then again, a lot of waterfalls on the south coast, and also the volcano that caused the 2010 air traffic disasters in Europe, where everything was grounded. That volcano was actually dormant, so they thought, until it
Suddenly
woke up.
surprised everyone, yeah.
Yeah, and that volcano is on that tour as well, so it's quite nice to see.
Okay, all right. Now, you said that you actually landed up traveling 3 days there and 3 days back because of the routing that you took.
Yeah.
So obviously getting to Iceland isn't necessarily an easy thing. You went through Dubai or
I went through Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi.
You don't necessarily have to do that. That was obviously more from a cost perspective.
Right.
It was cheaper to go via Abu Dhabi. You can do the direct flight to Amsterdam on KLM and then connect onto Iceland Air, which has got scheduled services into Reykjavik daily. Or like I did via Abu Dhabi on Etihad, and then we had to spend a day in Amsterdam on the way there and on the way back, which is fine.
Right.
Worse places to spend a day than Amsterdam, I suppose.
No, absolutely. You said that Amsterdam and Copenhagen both have daily flights.
They both have daily flights. So does Paris and so does Frankfurt, and
Okay.
obviously London, but we tried to miss London.
Right. But
But
if you wanted to do separate, maybe a little tag on a couple days in London or a couple days
Absolutely.
in Paris, then that's
Yeah.
very viable.
Yeah. Iceland Air's got scheduled services from most European cities, the major ones being Paris, Copenhagen, and Amsterdam and Frankfurt.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, so it's not actually necessarily difficult to get there. What do people need in terms of a visa?
Visa is a normal Schengen visa, which gets on a South African passport. It's a Schengen visa that gets issued via Denmark. Very easy process. Took us no time, and it's a Schengen visa, so you can enter the entire Europe.
Right. Okay. And accommodation and things. You're saying that you shouldn't really do a package, or there's no way to really do it like that. You've got to do it individually. Was that what you're saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that you book an actual package, because there's a lot of things that you would want to do on your own, and like I said, on the self-drive especially, there's a lot of places that you might want to spend more time at, where the tour bus is or a package is going to leave.
Right.
And also a fly drive is what we discussed yesterday in the offers. That's what we should offer as a solution.
Right.
So that you can hire your own car. So I mean, it's very easy. You give us a call and we can put it together, because it's very individually packaged on your needs rather than a normal traditional package.
Right, and that's obviously if people are doing the south of the country. You said that the north of the country is more difficult to get to because of travel and the ice and
the north of the country is normally iced over. It's where the big glaciers are,
Right.
And it obviously gets closer to the pole. So there are tours doing, and I would imagine if you're going to do the north of the country, they've got a ring road around the island, which is a highway, and you can do that ring road 1,300 kilometers.
Right.
You can self-drive that, but I would suggest you do that in summer then, when there's not going to be that much snow, unless you...
Really
Okay,
skilled
to drive
driver.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So basically the idea is if you want to hit the south and you want to hit the national parks and you want to see the geysers and some of the things, then self-drive is definitely the way to go.
Absolutely.
But maybe if you're heading into the Antarctic or the Arctic, it's not such a good idea to go by yourself as a South African driver.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So and in terms of cost and things per day, what are people looking at? What's the general rough estimate?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on what you're going to do and where you want to eat. The best thing to do is to actually go off beaten track a little bit as far as food is concerned, because in the main areas or the main streets where all the hotels are, and especially in Reykjavik, it's very expensive because they obviously are riding the tourism train.
Okay.
So if you just veer off that slightly and you go into more of the alleyways where the locals go, you get much cheaper food.
Right.
You're still looking at about 200 Rand per meal.
Okay.
Which is quite expensive.
I suppose
our
it's
terms.
Europe. It's roughly similar to what you'd pay in England, I guess.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So they do use krona, not euro. So don't. You can go with euro, but change it at the airport where you don't pay any commission. You can change it to krona because they're slightly anti-Europe, so they won't accept euro.
Okay, so how would you advise people contact you in order to get these packages put together for themselves?
Again, they can contact travel.co.za, which is, I suggest they phone, especially for this one. It's the easiest to phone so that you can speak to a consultant that can tailor this to your individual needs. So the number, just again, is 0861 698 728, and that goes directly to our call center at travel.co.za, and consultant can help with your package.
Well, that's easy. Thank you very much, Sarel.
No problem.
Right, so there you are. In Sarel's own words, the most uniquely beautiful country he's been to. So that's Iceland. It's worth taking a look at if you're a bit more adventurous, if you're a little bit creative, if you want to go somewhere a little bit different.
Let's go!